I wanted to just welcome you all here today to our publishing masterclass. This is our second webinar of the year, and we've been doing these now on and off since October, and it's just, like I was saying, it's just so nice to see everyone joining. The publishing category at Kickstarter is vast, it is exciting, and it is growing. So we've seen a huge number of new creators join our platform over the past year and find success for their publishing project. So we're absolutely thrilled to welcome you all here today to answer all your questions, get to the bottom of all of your queries. I'm Kay Symington and I work in education and open calls here at Kickstarter. So I'll be here in the chat throughout the session. If you have any questions or concerns, you can just pop it in the chat. But today, Oriana, our head of publishing, will introduce to you a little bit more about Kickstarter, our publishing category, and give you all her top tips for how to launch and run a successful campaign. But before we begin, I just want to run through a really quick code of conduct just to say, feel free to leave your video on if you feel comfortable, but no pressure if not. It's just so nice to see all your faces. Please keep on mute unless you're asking a question at the end. Respect your fellow attendees, as I know you all will. Refrain from any demeaning, discriminatory or harassing behaviour in speech here or in the chat. We're going to have so much time for questions at the end, so just keep them in the chat as you think of them, or we can pick them up towards the end. And I'm also on hand if you need anything as we go through. And I'm just going to hand over to you, Oriana, if you're ready.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to give my own quick disclaimer. I'm at a hotel in Denver because I'm here for the IBPA Publishing University conference, and I keep being told my internet is unstable. So I am really hoping that this all goes fine, but anyone is welcome to burst in if I suddenly and alarmingly freeze. I really hope that won't happen. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and get this underway. So here is me. I'm Oriana Leckert. I'm the head of publishing at Kickstarter. You can find me on most social platforms at Oriana BKLYN for Brooklyn. We have a brand new support email, launchsupport@kickstarter.com. If you want to write in for feedback on a project draft or any sort of support related to launching your project, you're welcome to use that email. It's a brand new system, so we're hoping that it's going to be really helpful to creators. And it would be great if you write in, if you tell us where you're coming from, or what you saw that brought you into that inbox, so that we can track whether these presentations and conferences are working, and what sorts of things they're bringing into the platform. And then Kickstarter.com/publishing. That's where you will find all of our wonderful, marvelous publishing projects. I can't remember if I say this later, but I'll go ahead and say it now. If you are even a little bit Kickstarter curious, the best thing you can do for yourself is find 5 campaigns on the site right now and back them. Even for $1 or $2, find and follow those creators out in the world, start to get a sense of how people are running their projects, and steal all of the best ideas for yourself. So just a quick little background about me. I have had a wild publishing journey. I started all the way back at Random House before they had acquired Penguin. I've been news editor for Atlas Obscura and MTV News, a matchmaker for ghostwriters at Gotham Ghostwriters, fact checker at Stone Song Book Packager. And this on the right is my book, which came out almost 10 years ago. It's grew out of a long-running reporting project on DIY and under the radar art and event spaces all across Brooklyn and New York City. First, I will start with why Kickstarter? What sets us apart in the crowdfunding landscape? So Kickstarter's mission: to bring creative projects to life. That is all and everything that we care about. We believe so strongly in that mission that Kickstarter reincorporated as a public benefit corporation. This wasn't something that I knew about before I came here, but it is a fairly strict legal and business charter that requires us to consider our impact on the world with everything that we do. We can't be coerced by shareholders, stockholders, investors to chase profits at the expense of our mission, which once again is to bring creative projects to life. Kickstarter's funding model is all or nothing. That means if you set out to raise $5,000 and you only raise $3,000, you don't get any of the money. Some people find that scary, but it was actually designed that way with the creators in mind. The idea being throughout your campaign, you're going to be making a lot of promises about what you're going to make, how you're going to bring it to life, what its specs are, what your associated rewards will be. If you do all of that and then find yourself at the end without all of the money that you really need, you're in a very bad spot. You're either going to have to self-fund for the rest of it, put up an inferior product, maybe not fulfill it all of which are pretty bad outcomes. So we wanted to guarantee that nobody is being forced to bring a project to life with an incomplete budget. Another thing that sets Kickstarter apart is that we give you your audience. This has always been foundational to the idea of Kickstarter and is even more important these days when we're watching how, with a flick of a malevolent wrist, a social media platform can change their algorithm, and then you've lost access to this giant audience that you've worked so hard to build. During a Kickstarter campaign, you're going to get a tremendous amount of demographic information about who your supporters are, where they're coming from, even what time of day they're backing. And then once your project is over, you get everybody's email addresses and you get to send surveys to get even more information. We want to make sure that there are no blocks between you and the audience who supports you. And then finally, Kickstarter's fee is 5%. That's an industry setting fee. We've never raised it. And our payment processor, Stripe, they'll take 3 to 4% variable. So if you budget 10% for fees, you'll be more than covered and you will still be spending a lot less than almost any other way that you can bring your books to your readers. So some quick stats about Kickstarter reads. Since the platform's inception, we've seen 65,000 projects launched, $354 million pledged from more than 3 million unique backers. The category has been growing steadily since 2017 and rocketing up since 2020. The current success rate for publishing projects is 56%, which does seem a little low, which is why I included the second statistic, which I'll just explain. We have that marker of at least 25 backers because if you can reach 25 people, that probably means you're getting a little bit beyond your mom, your best friend, your next door neighbor, the folks who are basically obligated to back any project that you bring their way. So if you can hit that mark of at least 25 backers, your success rate for publishing is 83%. So very high. Why would you do this? What are the benefits of crowdfunding for a literary work? Kickstarter is a platform that's designed to help you share the story of the work you're doing. Of course, that probably means the plot of your book, but it also means who you are, what brought you to this work, what inspires you, who you collaborate with, what you're making, why you're making it, what sorts of rewards you will also include, all things that are going to make people get really excited, not just to buy your book, but to support you as a creator. Kickstarter helps you connect directly with your readers, a really strong direct line. You can foster this yourself. You can do surveys throughout and before and during your campaign. Should we go with the red cover or the blue cover? If we hit our goal and can raise above that, what would you like to see for stretch goals? Your readers will also talk to you. They'll leave comments on your project. They'll say, oh, we wish you had a reward like this, or what are you thinking about doing next? All of these are really strengthening those bonds between you and your strongest supporters. Running a Kickstarter campaign helps you build awareness out in the world of the work that you're doing. A well-run Kickstarter should basically function like a marketing campaign. So you're going to be really making a lot of noise kind of through all of the channels that are available to you, making people more aware of who you are and what you're doing. The structure of these projects what helps people sell pre-orders or backlist. For legal reasons, we can't call them pre-orders, but a lot of publishing creators, that's what they're doing. You're assessing your audience, setting appropriate print runs, understanding, the shape of things before you go to press. And with the rewards, you can sell through your backlist, individual titles, bundles, anything you want to help people get more familiar with your entire oeuvre. Kickstarter is a great place to test out an ambitious idea because the stakes are the stakes are relatively low. If your project doesn't fund, you don't lose anything. You don't owe Kickstarter any money. You don't owe anything to your backers. All you've really lost is your time. So it's a great place to see, is there an audience for writing in a new genre, making a big omnibus, doing something different or bigger or stranger than you've done before? Finally, using the rewards really helps you thrill your supporters with unique ideas. I've got a whole slide toward the end of unique reward ideas, but basically, I mean, of course, you're going to be giving people your book, your published work, but there are all kinds of other things you can do to make people feel really connected to you, your creative journey, and, really be a part of your audience. Very quick overview for designing your campaign page. Obviously, first you're going to conceive your project. Is this one book, a series, an omnibus, a season for a publishing company? Whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you have a very clear understanding of the parameters so that you can communicate that throughout the campaign. Working out your funding goal. We have a lot of resources. I'll share some links to this later as well, but it is very, very important to make a real honest budget for all of your manufacturing and production costs, as well as all your rewards and all your shipping. You really need to know how much you need to make in order to bring this project to life so that you're asking for an appropriate amount. Most projects have a video. If to you the idea of making a project video is so appalling and abhorrent that it stops you from running a campaign, don't let that be your blocker. Plenty of campaigns do succeed without a video, but we do see a preference for projects that have them. If you are going to make a video, top tips: make it short, bright, and compelling. Most of our data shows that about 50% of potential backers stop watching after the first minute, and almost all of the rest are gone after the minute 2. So there's no need to make a long, dramatic Hollywood production style project video. You just want it to be a quick teaser showing your face if you feel comfortable, about you and your work, and drawing people in so that they'll read down the rest of the page. Designing your project page, this is where you can really relax and tell your story in all of its glorious detail. We recently released a new text editor, which is much more user-friendly, allows for a lot more bells and whistles, all sorts of embedded videos and GIFs and images and things like that. It also has a sidebar table of contents that anchors to your project headers. So that makes it even easier for folks to navigate around the page, and even better for you to just be really as long-winded as you want. I do come from a journalism background, so I would say try to make sure you keep the most important information up at the top, and then, tell your story as best you can with lots of images where possible to keep people excitedly reading all the way down the page. I keep talking about rewards, but the rewards are going to be really central to the Kickstarter proposition, making sure that people feel extremely rewarded when they support what you're doing. Some quick tips there. Your main reward will be the thing you're making: your book, your omnibus, your deluxe edition, your series, and then you're going to want to build things above and below that. Typically below the main tier, you'll focus on like digital items. You don't really need to collect shipping for small things like bookmarks and prints. A nice idea is like a 20-track playlist of songs you love to listen to while you're writing, or a nicely designed PDF of 10 other books that you might like if you're interested in mine. And then above your main tier, that's when you can get really fancy with all kinds of interesting things. And I don't mean only swag. People do like swag. If you understand and are comfortable making and shipping merch items, you're welcome to do so, but you don't have to. And it can really, really add to your time and your costs. So some cool things we've seen recently: you can sell off naming rights to your books. You can, we'll name the dragon after your dog, we'll name the villainess after your mother-in-law, we'll name the hero after your son. You can, a crazy one that I saw recently, Cassie Clare, whose campaign I'm going to talk about in a moment, she had a limited tier for $300. She would write longhand a quote from one of her books that people could get tattooed on their bodies. You could do high-end prints of your book cover. You could do editorial consultations, book clubs, launch parties. Again, thinking about ways that you can either use the creative work that you're already doing or draw your audience into the world of your creativity and make them feel really excited to be part of it. Some common questions that I usually just run through. We typically recommend campaigns run for about 30 days, or about 4 weeks. The vast majority of your action is going to happen the first week and the last week. Almost every campaign has a plateau period in the middle, but we think that that space is necessary, especially when you're new to the platform, to make sure that all of these avenues that you're using for your outreach and promotion have time to come to fruition. The last thing you want is an excellent piece of press or a terrific podcast interview to run the day after your campaign closes. So we think that that 30 days is about the right time to let all of that happen, but also not so much time that you aren't able to keep up the enthusiasm and the excitement during the course of it. People often ask me the best time of year to run a campaign. The best time is when you're ready and when you think you can reach your audience. Kickstarter has slow and busy months. We are, for example, very busy in like March and April, May, October, or September, October. But there are pros and cons to being on the site when it's busy and when it's slow. When it's slow, you can kind of become a big fish in a smaller pond. When it's busy, there's a lot more random browsers who might find your project, but there's also a lot more projects competing for those eyes. So the most important thing is to figure out when you are fully ready and when you think your audience is going to be available. We recommend launching early in the week and early in the day. So like Monday, Tuesday, maybe like noonish, whatever time zone you're in. That's just because that's when there tend to be the most people online looking at their devices and receiving your emails. Similarly, we recommend ending on a Thursday or Friday, maybe mid-afternoon to early evening. Kickstarter will send a 48-hour reminder email and then an 8-hour reminder to all the people who have followed your campaign but haven't backed it yet. And you don't want those emails to hit on a Sunday afternoon when nobody's, looking at their phones. You can edit every element of your project page, up to before you're approved, after you're approved, once you launch, on throughout the life of the campaign, except for a few things. Once you are live, you cannot change your end date and time, your total funding goal, or any reward that has backers. If you discover midway through a campaign that there's a typo in one of your rewards, you can work with our support team to get that changed. But other than that, the rewards are locked once anybody has backed them. And then when will you receive your funds? So the way money works on Kickstarter is that no money transfers at all until after the project ends. So that's, again, as I said, if you don't fund, there's no refunds because no money has been spent. Once your campaign has closed successfully, Stripe will take 2 weeks to pull all of those monies from all of the many bank accounts, and then they will take their fee, send Kickstarter our fee, and the rest will be deposited into the bank account that you have associated with your project. Okay, now I'm going to run through a number of case studies just to show you some of the wild and wonderful things that have been happening on the site lately. Cassie Clare, this is our highest funded publishing project last year. She's a best-selling YA fantasy novelist. She raised over $1 million from 8,700 backers. This was a really lovely campaign with many different projects within it. She had several different books. Some were re-releases of older published work with new covers and illustrations. Some were first-time print collections of works that had only been serialized online. As I said before, she had a lot of really cool and creative rewards. She also did new reward drops each week. A backer during the course of your campaign can manage and change their pledge. They can put in more money, they can put in less money, they can unfortunately cancel it altogether. But so Cassie put in new rewards each week that she announced via backer updates. So the people who had already supported her had the first opportunity to bump up or add on new and different and exciting things. We are seeing a huge uptick in genre fiction. These are a couple, this is Penny Reid's romance novel, Knitting in the City, which she had all sorts of lovely rewards like knitting patterns, yarn made by local yarnsmiths, I don't know, folks that she knew, things of that nature. And here's Will White, who's run several campaigns for his fantasy series Cradle. These are also two of our highest funded genre projects from last year, both of which were really wonderful projects. We're also seeing a real uptick in deluxe editions, particularly in genre. These are just some. Willow Winters does spicy romance. Gunmetal Gods is high fantasy. It really thrills my heart to see these incredible embellishments that people are doing with their sprayed edges and spot gloss and foiling and vellum art inserts, all sorts of things like that. And again, Kickstarter is a really perfect platform to do this sort of thing because you can, stair step your costs. You can say, once we hit the goal, we're making a deluxe edition with sprayed edges and a ribbon bookmark. And then each, if you raise $2,000 more, we're going to do beveling on the edges. If you raise another 2,000, we're going to do, this, that, and the other thing. So you can really sort of like make sure that each new embellishment is covered by the money that you're raising. Marcin Witchery, this is our highest funded nonfiction project from last year. This is an 800-page oversized coffee table book on the history of keyboards. I love this project so much, but I think it's a great illustration of how a small, niche, but very passionate audience can do wonders for you on a place like Kickstarter. Who would have thought that there would be 4,200 backers that wanted to spend more than $100 a piece on a huge coffee table book? Apparently there are, and Marcin really captured them. Some other kinds of nonfiction that are particularly popular on the site, software and engineering type stuff. This is Rob Walling's SaaS playbook. We've seen books on Bitcoin. We've seen books on, well, of course, I can't come up with anything else, but there are a large number of sort of like tech entrepreneurs who bring projects to the site. Skye Warren's best-selling author next door is a sort of like writing guide, self-help type book. We see a lot of writing guides because Kickstarter publishing is full of writers. So that's another area that is very popular. Just a few other quick ones. Memoirs, particularly medical memoirs. Gathering Color is a craft book about foraging and making your own yarn. Minu is a Instagram chef. She did this delightful baking book, and she, as part of her rewards, she made an online community of bakers who could talk to each other and share photos and their recipes. And then this You Are the Spell, we see a lot of sort of like witchy, new agey kinds of projects like that. They can do really well on the site. Another category that we love to see is art books. This is, again, a nice thing to do here because art books tend to have a much higher price point. You need, bigger trim size, nicer paper, higher quality printing. So Isaac's Lord of Maps was a compilation of his fantasy maps that he had designed, clearly resonated with more than 300 people. Some other art book types that we often see, single artists like The Art of Sims. This book was both examples of her art throughout her career, as well as some sort of guidelines and coloring pages and, things so that you could sort of like try to make art like Sims. The Suze Randall photo book. Suze was a well-known Playboy photographer, so this was a compendium of many of her career-spanning incredible photos. And then The Palace of the Dragon King was all illustrations having to do with Japanese monsters and myths. Children's books, another category that does really well on Kickstarter. I love this wonderful world of Zuri Rose. Makini Martin spent her career as a wedding planner and I think particularly a wedding flower arranger. So this is a book about flowers. There's a lot of STEM education within the story. It was also, Makini is a Black woman, so it was geared toward young Black girls to sort of like learn things and also have a delightful story. We see a lot of these sorts of own voices projects on Kickstarter, exactly the kinds of projects that a more mainstream publisher might say, the audience for that is too small. But of course, it's not too small. This top project is about Seahorse Dads, which is trans men who give birth. We see a lot of cultural stuff around language, around food. So Kickstarter is a great place to find the people who are interested in exactly that kind of project for their children. Okay, I'm almost done. Hooray. Got some various bonus materials, and then I can't see them, but I can see that there are 64 comments in the chat, so we will get to all of that. First, I'm really excited to share this summer, we are doing our first ever open call for romance books. It's called Heartstrings and Hardbacks, but it doesn't have to be only hardbacks. You can do paperbacks, ebooks, audiobooks, novellas, book boxes, open up a new romance bookstore, anything you want. A project that is live at any point in July of this year will be eligible to be part of this prompt. We're going to have dedicated newsletters, push notifications, social promo, all sorts of other features so that we can really draw attention to this category or subcategory, which has been growing by leaps and bounds. You can read more at kickstarter.com/heartstrings. There's also a button there. If you use that to start building your project, you will be automatically tagged into the open call. If not, you can write to the support team and they will tag you in. So very excited about that. Here, as promised, is my little rewards roundup. This is by no means exhaustive. As I said at the top, once you start looking at and backing other campaigns, you can see what other folks are doing. I'm not going to read every item on this slide, but these are just some ideas for ways that you can think about rewards in a new and different way that relates directly to the kinds of project you are doing. And you can see it's focused on online stuff, in-person stuff, also partner stuff. If you've got a friend who makes beautiful bath bombs or candles or knits delightful scarves, you can see if they might want to donate some. Also, if you have other friends who write books, maybe they'll share some signed editions. So yeah, these are, as I said, just to get your gears turning and to think about what the version of this would be for your project. And then finally, some helpful links once more, kickstarter.com/publishing. That's all our projects. I curate a creator tips page. You can see /creator/publishing. It has many videos of my face doing talks much like this one, but I've also got all sorts of good resource articles, how to create your Kickstarter budget, how to build your audience. I recently did one, how to get your Kickstarter funded book into libraries and why you would want to. We have one on the allure of special editions on Kickstarter and how to build your own. So I like to think there's a lot of really useful stuff on that page. And then of course, Kickstarter's Creator Handbook, which has tips, tricks, and resources for every step of your crowdfunding journey. I think that's the end. That's the end. Thank you for listening to me. Here's me again on socials. Here's our launch support email and our publishing site. Okay, I will unshare and now we can get into it.
Thank you so much, Oriana. I think that was incredible. Just so much information. And hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah.
So
Great.
far.
Good. So there are just like so many wonderful questions in the chat. I was trying to reply and I just did not have the speed to do it. So I was like, let's answer them now. And I think Doug here has a question. So I'm just going to let him ask his. I love it when people are brave enough to ask. Right, I'm going to unmute you. Did it work? Oh no, it's still muted, Doug. We can't hear you. No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Technological breakdown. I've done 2 Kickstarters. I got charged 8%, and your presentation said 5%. I just wondered who was right and who.
Well, Kickstarter's fee is 5%, and then Stripe, they do that 3 to 4% variable for processing all of the payments. So that would have come up to a total of something like 8.
So to be fair, you should be saying that it'd be 8%.
Well, I think that I was fairly accurate. Kickstarter charges 5, Stripe charges 3 to 4%. I did say if you budget 10% for fees, you'll be more than covered.
Okay, fair. Sorry, I didn't catch that 10% thing.
I talk fast. I'm sorry.
It's quite an important point that you don't get charged 5%. It will be more.
I think Doug was too busy sweating at his 8% there. He was too busy going. He didn't catch the rest but yeah, I've sent you a link, Doug, to the full information. And if you're still unsure, like get in touch and we can speak to support as well if you're still feeling
No, no problem. I just you do pay more than 5, so it was an odd thing to have on the presentation, I thought.
Thanks for bringing that up and making sure that it was clear for everybody.
Thanks, Doug. Cool. So then we have a bunch of other questions as well. So I don't even know where to start. Pre-launch pages, Oriana, how important is pre-launch?
That's a great question. So we rolled out pre-launch pages last year, and they have really dramatically changed the way that people are promoting their campaigns. A pre-launch page, for clarity, is it's a cover page that sits at the same URL where your campaign will ultimately live. It's a very simple title, subtitle, your project image, and a button that says notify me on launch. This means that as soon as you go live, Kickstarter will send a system email to everyone who has followed that page. So the pre-launch pages are designed for you to get followers and to, sorry, I just got a I got a notification, it distracted me. They're designed for you to get followers, which will also help you gauge how many people are excited about the project you're doing. We see a very high conversion from pre-launch followers to project backers. So the work that you do on your pre-launch page is going to really help make sure that you have a strong first day, which is going to be great for messaging, great for morale, and great for your overall chances of success. I recommend you put up a pre-launch page around 2 weeks before you launch. We've seen people do it a day or two before. We've seen people have them up for a year. That was a specific case, but I wouldn't really recommend it, mostly because I think a pre-launch page should work as a sort of gradual crescendo into the burst of your launch. If you get someone to follow your pre-launch page and then 6 months later you launch the campaign, they're going to get that email and not have any recollection of having followed you. You really want it to sort of like be very compelling to get them right in. So yeah, that's some info about pre-launch pages.
One more follow-up pre-launch page question is, can you have multiple pre-launch pages, and can you have a project running and a pre-launch page at the same time?
Yeah, so this is really a good question for our support team. Technically, you must completely fulfill your first project before launching your second. That's until in publishing, until you have a proven track record of 4 projects successfully run and fulfilled. After that, you're considered a creator in good standing who's eligible for overlapping fulfillment. You can never run 2 campaigns at once, but you can run the second one, or the, I guess, 5th one before the 4th one has quite finished. The reason I went through that is because in order to have a pre-launch page, your campaign has to be approved for launch. So in the eyes of our trust and safety team, they're basically saying you're okay to go live. So typically they will not let you put up a pre-launch page while you have a live campaign, because you could then theoretically launch it and then you'd have 2 campaigns live at once. There are some exceptions. You should write in to our support team, pwlsupport@kickstarter.com, and they can help you navigate that.
That's the secret exclusive webinar support team email, everyone. So write that
That's
down.
why you come to these webinars, to get all the inside dirt.
I'll stick that in the chat for you later. But yeah, and so a huge part, obviously, of pre-launch and of Kickstarter is your backers and where backers come from. So where do they come from, Oriana? How do people get backers, and how do they bring them to their projects?
Sure. Yeah. Well, there are no bad tactics in promotion. I think basic overview, you're going to kind of start with your inner circle and build outward. You're going to look at all the avenues available to you to reach your audience, both the audience that you have and the audience that you want. So the highest conversion overall is with individual emails. Think long and hard about who you will email, what you will say to them, how often you will write to them over the course of the campaign. Pre-write some of those emails to make your life easier once your project is live. I would say you're probably going to be emailing people at least once a week. Then there's socials. Probably you're going to be posting on socials pretty much every day. I would say start with the platform or platforms where you are the strongest. I don't recommend making a TikTok account just to promote your Kickstarter. I don't think that will work super well for you, but figure out where you've already got people who are paying attention to you, where other folks who might be interested in your kind of project, sort of where are they denizens of the internet and how can you reach them there? And that's all reaching the audience that you sort of already have. In order to get beyond that, you want to think about press. You can certainly do a press release. There's a guide on my creator tips page about how to write a press release for your Kickstarter project. If you're going to do that, you also are going to want to do some work to make a list of writers who are likely to write about the thing that you're doing. Don't send your press release for children's books to a tabletop gaming website, for example. Also think about who in your network or adjacent network has a podcast or a YouTube series or an Instagram live that they might invite you onto. Another way to think about promoting within the Kickstarter ecosystem, look at who else has projects live on the site at the same time as yours that are similar. reach out, ask about doing backer swaps. That means sharing one another's projects in your backer updates. This is speaking directly to people who already understand and are on board with the Kickstarter proposition. So that can also lead to really high conversion. Those are sort of like general guidance, but as I said, no bad tactics. I know of somebody who took out billboards to announce their Kickstarter. I've heard of people printing out flyers, putting them up at local coffee shops. So there's digital, analog, all the ways that you can think of to tell people about your project, you should probably do.
Which is just so exciting because someone in the Q&A, Karen, has said, I have bought a panda bear costume. Yes, Karen, I love it. To walk the streets, giving out promo stickers, and I have printed out freebie coloring sheets to leave in cafes, which is just,
I love it. That's fantastic.
and
Great
so
job.
my like advice is to think about who the audience are, like who really like is going to love your, oh, look at it, it's here, the panda is in the room. The is to think about who your audience are for that. So like if it is a kid's story, like don't lurk in front of schools, but like go in areas, high parent areas, so like supermarkets, jungle gyms, you know, like think about like what's there so that you're getting the biggest bang for your panda buck. That's my recommendation. Oriana, I have questions about rewards and stretch goals that I'm trying to like lump into one. So what in terms of rewards are just kind of like the top tiers that people should think about? I think you might have covered them in your presentation, but just to clarify them again.
Yeah, I mean, are you saying like the highest, most expensive tiers?
Or just like how do they work? Like, so what's the different tiers that people should think about for the reward?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a general piece of advice that I didn't give in the presentation, the most popular reward amount across all categories on Kickstarter is $25, and the tier at which people tend to earn the most money is 100. So it's good to have things at both of those tiers that there are a relatively unlimited number of. If you do your budget and your book costs $28 or $32, do not put it at 25 just to meet some sort of Kickstarter average. You should charge what you need for, you know, don't run a project at a loss in order to sort of like get into some mythical central area of Kickstarter. But you know, basically your main tier should be the thing that you're making. If we're doing a book, you probably will have ebook, paperback, and hardcover, maybe a deluxe edition if that works with your budget and your needs. Stuff below the main tier, we recommend doing mostly digital, and stuff above the main tier can be as high and as crazy as you want it to be. The highest reward amount for a single tier on Kickstarter is $10,000. Go ahead, put something up for 10 grand, see if somebody bites. This probably works the best if you already know you have deep pocketed people in your network, but there's no harm for putting up a reward that nobody pledges to. One other thing about this is you can also utilize your audience to figure out what rewards to make. Talk to them, ask them, do they want panda bear plushies or panda bear costumes? Do they want art commissions, variant covers? Do they want enamel pins and tote bags? See what your people are going to be excited about and then figure out whether that's going to make sense for you to create.
Thanks, Oriana. That's such a great answer. Are stretch goals still a thing?
So stretch goals, to define terms, I keep saying if your Kickstarter is all or nothing. So if you say you're going to raise 5 grand, you have to raise 5 grand to get any of the money. If you raise 5 grand and say our stretch goal is another 2,000, you don't have to hit that 2,000 to get your funds. Once you've hit your base goal, you will collect all the money that you earn. Stretch goals, they're really semantic. It's really just an excuse for you to keep promoting your project in a new and different way. And as I was saying, to sort of stair step your way up into additional product features for the thing you're making. You don't have to do stretch goals. If they seem weird or confusing or scary, don't do it. People sometimes say like, oh, but will folks still back if I'm already funded? Yes, they will be likelier to back if you're already funded because they are that much more confident that you are actually going to be able to make the thing. If you have a book that people are excited about, they're going to keep backing for your book. You don't need to use stretch goals to entice them. But if you want to, I guess the most important thing with stretch goals is work them out beforehand, or if you must do it during, really make sure you absolutely understand all of the associated costs. I've certainly heard of people who get sort of like caught up in the thrill of the moment and start throwing in new stretch goals without really budgeting out all of their production and associated fees. And that's a great way to get yourself in trouble. So be really careful and don't do that.
Martin, does that answer your question as well about kind of setting a low goal amount? You asked, is there a higher success rate for campaigns asking for small amounts of money, like £1,000? And I think it's really down to just setting a sensible goal, one that makes sure that you are going to actually be able to deliver the things that you said that you're going to deliver. Yeah. You can give me a thumbs up, Martin, if you feel like you've got your question answered. Yay. Vicky. Oh, hi, Martin.
Hi, sorry. I was muted. The question was, most campaigns that I've seen are for quite a lot more money than I really need for mine. Historically, is there a higher success rate if for lower amounts, or do people just think, well, it's not worth bothering with?
You broke up a little bit. I'm sure that's the fault of this stupid hotel internet. Are you asking about a low campaign goal? Is that
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I definitely have seen a trend of people launching projects with like a $500 goal. I think this is designed to, ensure that they fund early, and that's, very exciting. I would never want to push someone to ask for more money than they feel comfortable asking for, but I do think there's a lot of drawbacks of running a campaign that way. I mean, first of all, many of those campaigns will then say like, fully funded in 30 seconds. But people can read. They know that you've only raised $500 in those 30 seconds. I also worry that you're not going to make enough money. You should set your campaign goal as if that might be the sum total that you earn. And if that's the case, will you have enough money to create the project as you've described it? And also, will the work have been worth it? In many ways, it's the same amount of work to raise $500, $5,000, $20,000. You're still running the same campaign. And so, if you do all of this work, all the setup, all of the research, all of the communication, everything, and at the end, you've only got $1,000, will that have been worth your time? So that's kind of the way that I would think about it. I mean, I guess a high level way I sometimes say it is that in setting your funding goal, you want to make sure that your ambition matches your reach. You understand what it is that you need to make, and based on your audience that that's probably going to be possible for you. That's kind of the sweet spot in setting your funding goal.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Oriana. I'm like just reading through all these questions. I think like the next one is really about, so Vicky has mentioned that when she ran her campaign, 50% of her support came from Kickstarter backers themselves, came from the platform. Is there anything that people need to be aware of? And actually this kind of a follow-up question is like, what does the Kickstarter algorithm do? Like how does Kickstarter support projects, basically?
Totally, great question. So was that Vicky? That was a very high percentage. We will track in your creator dashboard what percentage of your backers are coming through the Kickstarter ecosystem and which are coming through the work that you're doing. In publishing campaigns, we usually see about 15 to 30% are coming through Kickstarter. So that is a significant addition to your own audience, but it's not the whole story. Kickstarter's algorithm works on attention. So you must bring your audience first, and then we will start to help amplify that. That's really kind of the whole story. Kickstarter can pour fuel on the fire, but only once you've started that fire. So that's again why it's really important for you to build up those pre-launch followers, for you to have all of your various promotional avenues to make sure that people are coming. And then as that happens, as Kickstarter sees, a lot of people are clicking, a lot of people are commenting and backing, that signals we should show this campaign to more people. Maybe more people will want to click and comment and back. All of that is our recommendation algorithm, and that sort of powers, the search result orders, the various carousels and macros across the site, the recommended projects at the bottom of all of our system emails. We also have, of course, our own newsletters, our various social channels, things like that. Those are done by our curatorial team. That's made by people. They're the ones who are scouring the site all day, every day to find projects that we think best exemplify everything that Kickstarter can be. There are thousands of wonderful projects live on the site at any given time. And alas, we are not able to give major boosts to all of them. So concentrate on making the best project you can that's going to appeal the most to your audience, and the rest should work itself out.
Sound advice. I'd left myself on mute there. There are another question here is about profit. I don't know much about that myself, but like, how much profit do people build into the rewards generally? Do you know much about that, Oriana?
I don't think I would have any way of knowing that. I mean, it is certainly in our budget worksheet, which I keep plugging on the site. There's room for you to pay yourself. You are a creative professional, and you should pay yourself if you can. There's also, I know on that budget sheet, it was written by Russell Nolte, by the way, who's like a 60-time Kickstarter creator who runs a masterclass on Kickstarters. And I know that he makes sure that you build in a line to do something nice for yourself. I mean, money is nice, but he gets, I know, a tattoo for one of the characters in his books after every successful crowdfunding campaign. You might also give yourself a massage or go to, a Broadway play, something that like will bring you joy after all the work of having done your campaign. I don't have a great guide for knowing how much to pay yourself or to value your work or what margins to build in. I think unfortunately that's just kind of a case by case basis, whatever makes sense for you.
That's great, Oriana. I'm just going to try and dig out that budget to drop the link in the chat.
Oh, I can, if you want me to.
Could you do that? That would be great. Yeah, I'm like, oh. Patrick had a question about projects, like hybrid projects. So it's a graphic novel and a record. How would you categorize that project?
Oh, you mean like what category?
What category do you put it in? Yeah.
Yeah, well, so here's a pro tip that people are like mind blown to hear. You can move your project category by category while it's live. You don't have to pick one project and stay with it forever, or one category. I'm sorry. I was looking at the chat. I can't do two things at once.
No, it's too hard.
You can move your project category to category. So if you're doing a book and a record, you can start it in publishing, move it to music. Our different categories behave in different ways. It's not going to make a tremendous difference if you category to category, because, again, most of the people who are landing on your campaign are finding it from an email they got or a tweet they saw or a comment on Reddit. So they're not going to know. They're coming from the outside. The categories are really for like people who are typing in Kickstarter.com to see like what's new in music. I can certainly tell you publishing's about in the middle. Music has much less organic traffic than publishing. Something like games and comics have much more. So if you are doing a card game and a book, I would probably launch it in games, put in books for the middle 2 weeks, and then finish it up in games. I think there was one other thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, and you could, if you want to get real crazy with it, perhaps your project image is the deck of cards and the book. You could swap that order based on which category you're putting it in, so that you're really emphasizing the thing that those people would be most interested in. Does that get to the question? Does that answer it?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Patrick. Thumbs up from Patrick. There's actually a couple of questions about location. So first of all, it's about success rates in non-US locations. I only know that UK is the biggest. US is the biggest, UK is the second biggest. And then after that, I don't know. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't think I could recite like category or country order, but here's what I'll say instead. I came to Kickstarter actually to grow our journalism category. And so when I would do journalism presentations, people would ask this question in the form of what US states have the highest concentration of like people backing journalism projects? The answer was New York, Illinois, and California. But that's because the 3 largest journalism campaigns we ever had on the site were in Brooklyn, LA, and Chicago. So the answer to this question is really like yes, you can certainly see success in other countries. Most of the time, if you will be capturing a larger US audience from outside the US. But, you know, since you're going to be doing most of the work, at least initially, to bring that audience in, if you've got a huge audience in Sweden, you will get a lot of backers from Sweden. If you got a huge audience in Japan, you'll be getting a lot of backers from Japan. The site is also translated every day into, I think, 5 different languages. Ugh. Spanish, French,
German,
Japanese,
Spanish, French.
German,
Yeah.
Chinese. I don't know,
Yeah, not
but
Chinese much.
I don't really know. I'm sorry. But that's a thing that you can find out. So yeah, and here's also a thing. You can back a Kickstarter campaign from anywhere in the world with no restrictions, so long as you have a credit card or a bank account from a country that Stripe is okay processing. You can only launch from specific countries where Stripe is set up. And so I know that's like not from India, not from Cuba, Iran, I think. So I mean, if this is you, you will do your homework and you will figure out if you have a, you know, a bank account that will allow you to do the project.
Yeah, and it's also worth pointing out that the currency that your project is in is set by where your bank account is. So you can't be in Spain and have a US dollar campaign, but what will happen is that the website will do the sums for the backer so that they see it in their native currency. I couldn't think of the word currency for the longest time there, so I kept going. But so I'm in the UK, and all my projects, when I look at them, are in pounds, so it's quite helpful. How does this is like another kind of trust and safety question, Oriana? We're getting into the real nitty gritty in this session today. How does the algorithm screen whether a campaign can go live or not?
I missed the middle of the question. I'm so sorry. Can you ask it again?
How does Kickstarter decide whether a campaign can go live or not?
Oh, well, that's the province of our trust and safety team. I don't suppose I should speak like too much to like the intricacies of their work, because that's not my work. But I mean, a project has to create something new to share with the world. It has to fit within our rules. So, you know, you can't have guns as rewards. You can't be selling drugs through a Kickstarter. I think the requirements are different in different categories. If you're doing some like a design and tech campaign with like international manufacturing, there's rules about you have to have prototypes and this sort of thing. I mean, I think most of the time, if you've got a clearly defined project, you've filled in all of the boxes, it looks like what you're doing seems reasonable, I think you will get approved. But the trust and safety team will communicate with you if for some reason they won't let the project go. They'll let you know what it is that, you know, isn't working with our rules, and give you the opportunity to revise and resubmit.
Perfect. Erin has asked, is it possible to set shipping rates for international customers to be different depending on where they live? Like I can say to US customers, get a low shipping cost, but someone who lives in the Netherlands will pay more. It's not a dumb question at all, Erin, and the shipping is so tricky.
Yeah,
I think
it's really complicated. I am not also like tech support, so I don't want to speak too freely about this, but yes, you can certainly change your shipping rates based on where people will be. Kickstarter's company goals for this year all have to do with sort of like post-campaign tools and features. I can't break any news in this presentation, but we are looking hard at things like shipping and tax collection and post-campaign add-ons. So, you know, stay tuned to see what we're doing. We are trying to make a lot of this like really complicated stuff much easier for our creators.
Someone's asked a really interesting question, and Joshua Rubin has asked, would you say that it's true that the more you spend on marketing for your campaign, the more you're likely to recoup?
The more you spend on what?
Marketing. If you spend more, are you going to earn more?
Well, maybe. I think the answer to that is maybe. I mean, marketing is also a whole world that there are like, there's a vast array of how you can do marketing, especially paid marketing, and much of it is very difficult to know beforehand whether it will be effective. I know our highest funded ever tarot creator, a person named Seven, the publishing goblin, their campaign raised well over $1 million, but there was a period of time in the middle when they were spending $30,000 per day on ads. Fully insane. Did they earn more for having done so? Probably. But can everybody stomach that kind of ad spend for performance marketing? I don't know. If you're working with a firm that does digital marketing, they will track your ROAS, which means return on ad spend. It is incumbent upon them to help make sure that whatever you're spending, you're still earning more than that. But these are like detailed questions that you'd want to have a conversation with a marketing professional about. I mean, Kickstarter is, your strongest connections are with your organic audience. And then, digital marketing and performance marketing can be very effective, but it can also kind of fall flat in this fractured, social and internet landscape.
My computer just never wants to unmute me. Someone had a really great question about what happens if you're unable to, you have a successful campaign, something happens, and then what happens to your backers from a creator perspective? What do you do if you can't fulfill the campaign?
Yeah, well, I also I'm not speaking as like a Kickstarter lawyer. Certainly it is, important for you to try your best to fulfill. I would say one nice thing here is that Kickstarter backers are actually quite understanding about delays, provided you are transparent with them. This is what you are coaching them, and through the entire Kickstarter proposition, this is actually why we can't call projects pre-orders, because the idea is this thing doesn't exist yet. They are helping you bring something to life for the first time. So if you say to them, there was shipping delays, there was a problem with the print production, we had to, the cover artist fell ill and needed an extension. If you continue to communicate these things to your backers, they will be very understanding about your need for more time. This is also why with every reward tier, you can set a fulfillment date. So whenever you think you're going to be able to send those rewards out, add 3 months and then put it up. Like there's, give yourself plenty of buffer, because you're setting expectations then about what people should, expect. Are you obligated to like pay backers back? I don't think so. I don't think we have any sort of like thing that coerces you to have to do that. But you're trading on your reputation. If you really can't do the thing, what's going to happen is that people are going to have a lot less faith and trust in whatever your next project is. So I don't say that to be dire, just, do your very best to make sure before you start that you're going to be able to fulfill on all your promises.
And then another exciting question, which is one I love to have answered, is like, what is the successes in terms of people who have launched a Kickstarter and then gone on successfully to find a publisher? Do you have any examples?
I don't have like data about that. I will say first, don't go into the Kickstarter with the primary goal of being noticed by a publisher. I talk to publishers and agents all the time. Whether or not I think they should be, most of them are not scrolling Kickstarter to see who, the biggest successes are. Of course, if you're making a huge splash out in the world by promoting your campaign, you certainly could get found. One story that comes to mind, Kwanzaa Ofeyemo, who's a Black comics creator, he tried apparently for years to get his comic book bought by a major publisher, which was about Black people developing superpowers. And all the publishers told him that was too niche of an audience and no one would be interested. He ran the project on Kickstarter. I think he raised like 80 grand. And then a publisher did come and say, hey, turns out there is an audience. Maybe we can talk. Often, I don't remember, I think in Kwanzaa's case, the publisher did bring out the same book, slightly different, cover and trim size, etc. Often what you will see is the publisher says, you did an amazing job with that cookbook for pancakes. I would love to commission you to do a cookbook on waffles, or whatever your next project is going to look like. So yeah, it certainly can happen. Yeah.
Amazing, Oriana. Thank you so much. And we've actually completely like ran out of time. I can't believe we had so many questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for your information. We'll be sending around this recording. Next week, we'll also send you a bunch of the resources that we've talked about because we have covered so much. I'll follow up with an email next week. If you have any problems or questions in between, you've got that support email. And Oriana shared her details earlier too. Yeah, so keep in touch. Let us know how you get on. We can't wait to see your projects launch. We're very excited. We actually have 2 upcoming events that might be interesting for people in the group. We have another webinar on the 21st of May with Bonkers Romance, specifically about publishing and romance and how to launch a successful publishing campaign within that category. And then we are also, if you're in Brooklyn by any chance, then we're also doing a live event with the Ripped Bodice, again to celebrate our heartstrings and hardbacks open call that we have for projects launching in July. So yeah, we'll send through those links next week so you have them all, and we look forward to keeping in touch. And thank you for all your questions today.
Thank you all so much. This was such a great engaged group. Really appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks ever so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ariana. Thank you, Kay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.